Hello everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is Claudia and Jessica is also with us. And I'm gonna unmute you guys because it's only two of you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
So we just wanted to start off and see if y'all had any questions on the A to J DAT or questions on A to J in general, and then we'll turn it back over to Claudia for sort of the closing stuff for this series. So did y'all have any questions?
I was wondering, I wasn't on the last class. We had a staff illness, had to run and cover another courthouse. Was there a link to the video on how to do the ATJI homework for this class?
So we had a little snag with the video posting. It didn't stick when Claudia did it, so it'll be there in the files.
Yeah,
But I'll put two links in the chat now
Okay.
to the videos.
Yep, I think the video will take care of me just fine. I kind of went through and muddled through the homework, but I think I watched through the video usually fixes it for me. But other than that, I am great.
Cool. All right, I'll put the videos for week 4, or the 4th video and the 3rd video in the series.
Excellent, thank you so much.
Claudia, I think you have to pass them on because I only have ability to share them for the presenters.
No, I swear because I did move it to the YouTube channel and I posted it in the folder, but you know my folders weren't sticking last week.
No,
So
can you share the chat though with everyone, because it only goes to organizers when I put it in.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. How do I do that? File?
I think you just copy.
Okay.
I put it in the chat for this.
Okay.
I'll put video 3.
Got it.
Sorry, Kate, did you have a question too?
Yeah, I think same thing. I think that the video will take care of me, and I know where the hiccup is, so I feel like I can probably work through it. But I did have a question. Is there a way to get more training on the A to J, on what we did this week, or we do the back and the front A to J?
Like hands-on activities, or you want like a session with me kind of thing?
Well, I mean, that would be lovely, but I think so you know, like with the hot dogs, how there's the training manual, you know, it's pretty lengthy and in-depth. Is there something like that with A to J?
Yeah, so we have in our authoring guide, which is under the Learn tab on our website, chapter 15 covers the DAT, the backend stuff. And then in that same Learn tab, if you click it, it's going to take you right to the authoring guide. It's like a quick link. If you hover over it, it has like a bunch of options. And there's more sample exercises that have the DAT backend. So you can practice sort of the A to J front end and the DAT back end as well with different sample exercises.
Okay, so if I start playing around in that and do, because I haven't tried it with any of our forms yet, but if I do like our short forms and start playing around with that and it works, can you help me get it up on LHI?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the publishing is really easy. It's sort of the same way that you publish an A to J interview, just like the interview. When you publish an interview that has a DAT, a template in it, an A to J template in it, the LHI system recognizes that and it doesn't ask you to like associate it with a hot docs template. It knows that if it has a certain file when it gets uploaded, that it's the DAT too, and sort of it's published all in one thing. But I'm happy to do a little like screen sharing session with you when you're ready to publish it, or if you have questions, just shoot me an email.
Okay, thank you. I think I am going to start kind of figure out just our simplest stuff, and then when I do that, then consumers can just print it. I mean, it's not going to talk to our e-filing system. It's just they can at least print it. They can e-file it on their own, right?
Yeah. So when it'll download as a PDF to their system, and then they'd have to save it. It is if you do multiple forms. So the only issue, like we had Matt Newstead, who's in Illinois, their e-filing system requires each like form to be a separate PDF. And our system right now makes all, like if you have multiple forms in one interview, it downloads as one PDF. So that's the only sort of like snag with e-filing that I've heard about using the DAT.
Yeah, I think we'll have a similar issue too. We have to put them in separate envelopes.
Yeah, and with LHI, you can use the hot docs multiple document assembly option, and that will let you produce each output. You could even have it in different output, like you could have the same form go out on PDF or on XML, or you could have it go on RTF, whatever the choices are. You can have it go, or you can have different documents. And we just changed that, how it looks, so that people know what document they're actually downloaded, because sometimes if the package has too many forms, people get confused.
Yeah. And our on the DAT side, the A to J side, we're working on a way to separate them out, because we want to be able to like comply with, you know, people who need the separate PDFs. And actually in our system, it makes the separate PDFs and then it combines them into a single one before it downloads. So it shouldn't be sort of that difficult for us to separate them out and just like download them separate, but it's not there yet.
Okay. Okay, that's good information. Do you think that when it does get there, that the interviews that we have already created will be easily transitioned to that format, or will we have to do something special to break them up?
I'm not sure. You might have to like check a box as an author to say like allow these to be downloaded separately or together, but it shouldn't be something that's like super complicated. We've talked about allowing end users to decide if they want it. So it'd be like after they finish the interview, they get a little box that says like, do you want to download these separately or you know, as one PDF? And we've also talked about putting a checkbox so the author decides that this interview is one that gets separate or grouped. But I don't think it'll be any heavy load if you make it in the DAT first, like if you've already made it before.
Yeah, so it's not like I'm going to go back in and like
No,
recode.
it won't be like a whole new thing. No, it'll reuse.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, you guys have any other questions?
That's it for me.
Okay, cool. Claudia, back to you then.
Yeah, we didn't get a lot into project planning or any other capacity with LHI. So just wanted to highlight for you a couple things in case you are wondering whether this is available or not. And let me take the screen actually. Let me share. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So in the pro bono.net library, we have a lot of materials to help you plan a project. And so I would really encourage you to look at what's in here. One of the most popular projects is the metrics folder under evaluation. This is where we post all the quarterly reports, and we have multiple types of reports. So if you want to see how a new interview is doing for a quarter, you can come here and you will look at what we call the content report, the usage report. And then if you want to know how your user types, let's say that you're working both with pro bono lawyers and with self-represented, and you want to see how self-represented use of a particular interview is going, you can look at it here. We also have it broken down by LSC problem type if you're LSC funded. Actually, everybody's going to have to put a code so that we can create this report, but it will tell you, you know, how many, it goes to 4 levels, if you know, and the NIMSIs, you know what I'm talking about. But you can see what all your domestic violence forms are doing, or all your landlord tenant forms are doing. So I encourage you to spend some time. Okay, this is a new one that we just released, and it's in beta, and this is average interview report. The idea here is that this one is when people come to LHI, right? Not from when they come to your website, but to LHI. We're tracking how long they're in that session. And so the idea is that you're going to use this to give people in your instructions an expectation of how long it's going to take them to do the interview part. And mind you that it's average, so it may change over time. It hopefully will get more solid, but some people may not be sitting to complete depending on how long the interview is. So you may have a lot of people that are coming back. So there are caveats with that, but that's a new one that we've been really excited to put out for the community. So we have those. Then the other thing I wanted to show you is we have planning materials, and I encourage you to look at here. LHI has something called LHI Connect, which lets people in groups, in teams, password protected, work on creating documents together. So you could have an SRL in a 300 people clinic agree to share their answers with a group of lawyers for one or two firms that are working together. And then those lawyers could a week later provide the counsel and advice remotely or in person, whatever the deal is, but they don't have to do it all in the same clinic. So there's a lot of capacity with this. And so LHI Connect is something that you guys may check out if you're interested in remote type work. We also do e-filing, and so if you're interested in talking about e-filing, we have that, and LHI has specific screens for e-filing and specific back-end capacity so people can track their e-filing. So if the court accepts it, the person can go to an LHI page and see, oh, it got accepted, or if the court rejects it, the person will also know that it got rejected. So there's other screens that you guys haven't seen because we didn't get into that. I really encourage you to look at everything around testing. Testing is really important. You really want to make sure you test every field like we talked about last time and really look at that. And so we have a lot of guidance here on testing and different type of testing things that you can do. LHI supports Polish, French, Vietnamese, Tagalog, Mandarin, Spanish, and English. So if you want to create interviews in those languages, the shell of LHI is already translated. So feel free to reach out on that. And then the other thing is that we are integrating to Legal Server and Salesforce. And I'm going to put this on the chat. This is a project that we worked in Oklahoma that uses LHI Connect to do domestic violence pleadings in a trauma-informed way so that the person would only be interviewed once at a DOJ-funded justice victim center, and then from there it would go to Oklahoma legal aid lawyers, avoiding having the person to tell their story 20 times in the process of the domestic violence. So they were working with non-lawyers in the Justice Center, sharing through Connect and a Salesforce integration we did, and then legal aid providing the domestic pleading. So check it out. It has videos of the staff. They totally love it, and they cut the process to create the restraining order from like 2 hours to 45 minutes through this integration. And then the last thing is that we didn't get a lot onto project planning, and I'm happy to share this. I really encourage you before you start creating a project that you really create a solid project plan, and I'm happy to connect with you and help you think about what it will take depending on what type of form it is, like what steps you really want to put time in for, so that you don't end up rushing to create a document that nobody is going to use or accept, or rushing to create a document but then you didn't budget time for plain language or for really working on the instructions. So this is a project plan that it's a model. It's on the high end. This one took 3 months to do, but I'm happy to share it if it helps people think through these things. Really goes through what it takes to do a project in a really good way. And so, first you have to really have the interview language and logic. You have to have the resources of the page where you're gonna post it. And by the way, with LHI, we want people to post on the LSC approved website. If you wanna post in a different website, you have to let us know, and we have to give you written permission to post in another website because that's part of our contract with Abacus Next. Then you know how you're going to have all the instructions around the form, FAQs, instructions, next steps, checklists that you may want to give people for the process. Then the process of testing and validation, you may have to give it to an A2J commission, you may want to give it to a bar committee, and then you may want to invite them to test, and then you iterate and then publish the interview. And these are kind of just like in the terms of creating the interview, some of the core planning, and you want to plan and give yourselves time for all of this, because if not, it's gonna become really difficult. And then the other, the whole plan is a little bit more complex than that, because you have to have depending if you have funders, you have to do reports for funders. You may have an advisory committee. We really encourage people to put an advisory committee together, so that they can be aware of what's going on, and nobody comes and says, hey, you never told us. We're not going to buy into this because you never told us. And then if you have grants, you have to plan and coordinate everything with the grant. And then if you're working with your legislator, and then if you want to track specific statistics, we do have a capacity in LHI to do additional custom reporting with permission from the end user. So, that's something that we didn't talk about here, but we can pull aggregate data. So like in this case, they wanted to know what counties they were in, whether they consider themselves to be the family member or the actual user of the form, and 6 other characteristics of the users that they want to eventually share with the legislature in this project. So the users are agreeing to share that information with the Northwest Justice Project. So there's enhanced capacity reporting that we do if it's of interest. So there's a lot of things we didn't cover. So I encourage you to keep joining the calls. That's how we share a lot of this information, but also checking out what's in this website. And then, or to reach out to me or Miranda if you want to know, hey, can LHI do this? There's a lot that we are not getting into. And a lot of best practices from many states that have been doing this for a long time that you can just see if it works for your state or modify it or adopt it. So I'd be happy to share any of this if you email me, but encourage you to look at the testing. Don't publish on LHI before you have tested. And in the webpage, we have something that we have the divide by 0 error. That one you really want to check against. That's a fatal error that if your template for some reason is dividing by 0, it could crash LHI for the whole country. And finding the offending template is a nightmare. It can take us hundreds of hours. So you definitely want to know about that one because you don't want to do it. And so where you guys are going to get a survey to get feedback on this training. And we're actually doing live training in Portland. If you're coming to ITC, we've opened that up. We're gonna do this beginning training. It's gonna be 2 days on the 13th and the 14th, and then we're doing an advanced one in the morning of the 14th. So we're taking, these are limited because we wanna keep the group small so that we can give everybody individual attention. So beginner will have 15, advanced is gonna have no more than 6 attendees. So if you're interested, sign up now so that I can confirm you, and we encourage you to get the hotel. There is going to be an affinity session at ITC, I believe on Wednesday at lunch. So I encourage you to come and say hi. There's gonna be people from other states, but also I believe Doc Assembly is gonna be there. A community lawyer is gonna be there. I invited everybody that's in this space. I don't know what people want to talk about. I expect it's gonna be regulation, maybe, because that's what's got a lot of people worried. I encourage you to watch the video from last month, which was on regulation. If you were not in there, we talked about the ABI guidelines. And then on November 18th, we're going to have what we call the listening session, which is something similar to what Jessica just did, where we listen. We've been doing this for 5 years. We present what we did to the system based on your input from last year, and some of the enhancements and things that we changed based on community feedback. And then we're going to show you what we're thinking we want to do and get feedback to see, oh yeah, a lot of people would use this, or no, this would not, like, like when we did French and Polish, a lot of people say, oh yeah, we would use that. So we did it. But if we don't get any feedback, or people are like, nah, that's not worth doing it, then we're not gonna spend our limited resources changing the system to accommodate that new functionality. And then if you have ideas or suggestions, we can also listen to those and take them down to see if others in the community would use them. And then we take that to create what we call our working plan for 2020. So that's on November 19th, and encourage you to join for that. So I'm gonna stop now in case you guys have questions.
I am interested in more information on the project planning, and I was trying to follow along on your screen. Can you show me where those resources are? Just tell me. I have the Pro Bono Net up. Okay, library.
Yeah, so it's project planning has a bunch.
Okay.
You
I'm
know,
gonna go look.
process, you know, there's actually, if you're hiring contractors, we have sample contracts, you know, all kinds of things. That the Google that I was sharing, I don't have it in there. I can email it to you if you want.
Okay.
I can send you this. I haven't posted it there. And this one, it's for a very large project. Just caveat, this was for over 70 online forums, and you can actually see how beautiful they are because there's some of them are live. So if you follow the project plan, you can see that all of this was, you know, figuring out how to surface this, all the language here. We work really in depth in creating the instructions. And then if you look at the divorce one, all of this language went to plain language. Let's
If
see,
you
divorce.
wouldn't mind sharing that with me, because I mean, our project is probably pretty parallel. I mean, as far as size and just by glancing at what information is available, it's really kind of in the same vein. So if you wouldn't mind sharing it with me, I would share it with our working group. I think a lot of folks don't have a real good handle on how big the project is or how many steps would be involved. So that would be really helpful for me to share if you don't mind.
Yeah, I just put it on the chat. You know, so
Okay, hold on.
all of this was planned. You know, every little thing here we planned. You know, we worked on our substantive expert, like, you know, what is it gonna have, and moving people through understanding everything. And then by the time that they get started, this is my favorite part. You know, it's in the details, right? It's making it
Yeah.
very clear that they're going somewhere else, you know, and that even all of this was field tested. All of this was tested with real users to make sure did they understand that, you know. So all of this already has a lot of empirical backup. And because in Washington they were trying to regulate programs that exercise the judgment of attorneys, we even put this little disclaimer with NJP. You know, because a lot of there's regulatory mania. People think that non-lawyers cannot help out unless they change like a gazillion rules, which is not true. If you look at the blog post, classic example of like non-attorneys helping people on the way to a protective order, but that's a different discussion. So, you know, like all the disclaimers and everything, I would really encourage you to that anything that you create, that you look at the ABA guidelines and you make sure that you have all of your disclaimers, like in the interview that you have, you know, do you understand that this is not legal advice and blah, 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 and, you know, really targeting the form to a particular problem type. Giving people a chance to know where they can get a consult should they qualify for one. You know, there's a lot more than just coming, creating the form and putting it out there. You have to really think through everything. And then if you do the interview, and there's a shorter one, the fee waiver one, it's a lot shorter. In NJP, they even created a checklist set of instructions that has icons so that people that can't read can see a little icon. It's like, okay, print it, go to the clerk, you know, give them 3 copies. And it's like the instruction sheet that they created is beautiful. So this is a model, and the model project plan is on this, but you know, good projects require a lot of thinking through the what we call the client journey. And so if you want to talk about any of those parts, this is one model. There are other models where we're working with others to really, so it's not just about the form. Most of the time, it's not just about the form.
So
it's
that model,
about the journey.
So that model project planning form, it's not in the pro bono folder?
Not yet. I haven't posted it there. This one, but I
Okay.
can share it. If you email me, I can share it and I can tell you what else to look at.
Will do.
Okay. Yes, I'd
Yeah.
like to. I would like that as well, because it just is. I think it's important to show other stakeholders kind of the hugeness of the project, so they're really aware of how many layers there are. Like you said, it's not just a form. It's not just an interview.
Yeah, and like I think that the better way to show them is to actually show them, something that's already like done, like the one that I was showing you.
Yeah.
Starting from,
Yeah.
starting from the beginning. Because you're gonna have to come up with your own way to create your web page and lead people to the forms. Forms are really high value content. So like you're gonna have your whatever organization or hopefully statewide website. You're working with your statewide website, but if let's say that you say to us, "Oh, I want to have this not in the state. I don't know what your statewide website looks like." And we give you permission, and you put this, and you start, with this all the way to the point here. All of this is on your website. This is not on LHI. We can work with you to help you understand what the elements of a successful page are, and then all these details you're going to have to think through. What do you want to tell people at the beginning? What disclaimers do you meet? Do you want to meet the ABA regulatory requirements and all of that? And then how do you tell them that they're coming to LHI? And then once they are in LHI, then if you look at the interviews, you will see how detailed the interviews are too. Because you have a lot of options on guidance, right? Like both with A to J author and hot dogs, you can put guidance inside the interviews so that people know where they are. So this is not the interview. This is just to get people. And this project is become extremely successful. But I tell you that we spent 3 months planning all of it so that everything would be the same for all of the forms. So all of the elements in the forms are consistent, and we created the little symbol for the project that carries through. This little symbol was done by a firm, pro bono. This is in the interviews, this is in the dialogues, this is in the instructions. There's a lot to think through. And then there's the whole thing about the champions, the advisory group, and then identifying who's gonna be all of the people that you invite to test or to like hear updates that you're gonna send your quarterly report or whatever to. And then once you get into the nitty gritty of the interview, in this case they created field standards because they're planning the whole journey, not just initial or beginning. So this package they're gonna have packages that work together. Like I said, there's over 70. And so really making sure that all of the developers, because they have more than one developer, all of the developers are using the same standards for the interviews and all of that. Same instructions for every interview.
Can I ask you, you keep saying, and maybe this is just a really basic question that I should know the answer to, but you keep saying, so this is obviously Washington State's project, but it sounds like you've been very involved. And so if we wanted to, embark on a similar project in Indiana, how would we have you or a counterpart from Pro Bono Net or LHI help us with that? What does that look like?
You can email us and we can talk talk with you about that. We provide support, on an as-need basis. That's part of what we do at Pro Bono Net, right? Like we help you think through things. But in terms of like really taking, I would say anything that's like 5 hours a month, anything more than like, an hour or like whatever, when we become involved and we're part of the team, like in this case, that's a different thing that we can do. But we're happy to sit down with any project and show them, okay, there's this model, like there's this other model. This is another one where we've been really involved as part of the team. And it's different. It's a DC courts one, but it's equally well thought out. And this one is also massive. We just released 26 interviews. And they also have some in Spanish, I believe. So email me and we can talk about it, because if we have the bandwidth and it's a project that we think is strategic enough for us to get involved, we may carve out, we may be able to like do a small contract or something. With Washington State, the planning was intensive. I would say it was about 15 hours every week, because I was trying to educate the project manager to understand, why do you need to do this? Why do you need an outreach plan? Why do you need to identify all your stakeholders? So we spend a lot of time watching videos and walking through like multiple states, so she could decide what fits in Washington State, And then once we solidify the project plan with the developers, very much as part of that, then the automation started. And that's where we are now, just pushing them out. So
Okay.
I think one thing to think when we talk about project planning, I do in here in staffing, take a look at that, because one of the biggest problems I see is that they don't allocate enough time to a project manager, and if you are only doing this like a quarter FTE or a half an FTE, depending on how, what do I call it, how important the project is going to be for the whole state, that may not be enough. You may need a full-time FTE. You may need more than a full-time FTE. Like you may need a full-time FTE, you may need a content writer, you may need a plain language expert, you may need a translator, and you may need a designer. So the budget is not like some people go around saying, oh, it's $1,000 to create a form. And that's extremely short-sighted. It's not. It's not if you want to make a good travel, journey for the client.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that's
email
good
me
info.
and I'll send you this, and I can give you folders to check out. Like if you're gonna hire somebody to become your in-house developer, we have job descriptions here. If you're making a 5-year investment in this, or do you think that this is gonna be a long-term investment? Building it from the inside is a lot more cost effective. However, you have to allocate about a year of that person becoming really proficient. Right? So if you're not in a rush, that's an option, but don't expect that the person is going to have a divorce with kids and child support and everything done in 6 months, because that's not going to happen. But if you're, if you have the time, if you have 2 years when you need to have this out, then not bringing a developer is a lot better. But if you want to, it just depends. So like each project, you have to think about what's the complexity of the form and what other parts already exist. Maybe you already have these websites. Maybe you already have really good instructions. Maybe you already have icons. And I'm a big fan of the Transcend group. Let's see, Transcend here. And like, they make a lot of the icons for free. And I think that they actually made these ones. They have the icons here, so you can borrow some of their icons. I'm not seeing them right now, but let me put this on the chat. So like, maybe you don't need to have icons created. Maybe you already can use some of these, or you have some, but you have to think about all that.
Okay. Okay. That's really good perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, and we didn't cover much, but that's what we try to do in the monthly calls, bring examples from the field and talk about how
Mhm.
the project was done, what they learned, what they wouldn't do again. You know, like it's like don't replicate uh, the things that work, and then in your state you decide what did work for my community. And sometimes some things that work in one state won't work in another. You may not have an A to J commission. You may not have, a proactive leadership team, so you have to think of other ways to going about getting buy-in and that kind of thing. And then
Right.
leaving enough time to test. The golden rule is for every hour of interview development, give yourself 3 to 4 hours to test. And never underestimate that, particularly if you're sharing it widely before you finalize it.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you all for coming to all the sessions, and I'm gonna send everybody the survey so we can hear how we did. And then I hope that you consider coming to the ITC and the live training. The other conference that's gonna light up soon is the Self-Represented Litigant Network conference, which is in May, and I'm not remembering where it
It's
is.
in March,
Oh, it's in
Nashville.
March.
In
Yeah,
March.
it's coming up early. And where is it again?
Nashville.
In Nashville, Tennessee. And they haven't announced what they are choosing, but it should be really focused on the self-represented space, courts, and legal aid partnerships, that kind of thing. And I encourage you to check out what they have, because they also have monthly calls on all sorts of areas if you're working specifically in self-represented forms. So they have a ton of calls. I mean, you could spend 20 hours a week going to all of their calls, but you can join the groups that you're interested in and then be part of that. And they record them too, so like if you cannot join it, you can listen to the calls, and a lot of it is really helpful. And they have a forms and technology call that's open to everyone, and that one you may want to check that one out. But they also have a librarian call. They have a navigator call now, where they're trying to get navigators established. They have self-represented, court-driven, self-represented self-help centers call. They have a process simplification call. All kinds of different groups working on, and the people that are there are really good. So this could be another resource. Okay, well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.